Welcome back to Coast View. I hate to say that I enjoyed that conversation with Laurie Jackson. You certainly don't enjoy a conversation with a missionary, an independent missionary, who has chosen to stay in Ukraine to help families. Um, Maybe I should say I'm honored. I'm honored to have the opportunity to speak to someone like her. And what she says about the people of Ukraine, I can't help but think about how we feel about each other in coastal Mississippi. I mean, they love their country, they love their freedom, they're willing to fight for it. They're incredibly resilient. And how she describes what's in their heart and soul, it's nothing less than touching. And I'm going to stay in touch with Laurie. I've actually reached out to a couple of other people who are in Ukraine, and hopefully we can have them on as well. I don't normally would go to someone in Ukraine for a show called Coast View, but Ukraine, we're all thinking about it, man. And the opportunity to develop relationships with people who were there so we can understand it from a coastal Mississippi perspective, I think it's important. Hey, without any further ado, let's move over to my next guest, which is my friend Mark Henderson. It's been a while since we've chatted. He's the co-founder of Mississippi's first brewery, Lazy Magnolia Brewing Company, but he also has a company called Log Linear Group. They design sophisticated radar systems and communications equipment. So he's a design engineer. He's an inventor. He has a bunch of patents. He's an artist. He's very, very focused on the community, and he's also a really dear friend. So anyway, how you doing, Mark?
Ricky, I'm happy to be here. Happy I can be here. Doing really, really well.
Well, okay. So, look, I mentioned to you when we were off the air the opportunity to spend some time with people like Laurie Jackson, who has chosen. She could have come on into Poland, but she's chosen to stay in Ukraine because there's just too many families to help, and she knows what it means. It means that she's putting herself and those who she feels so close to at risk. But I don't know a smart person, and you're a really smart person who's not thinking about Ukraine. What goes through your mind when you think about it these days?
Man, I'm really struggling with understanding how we get out. On one side, you can appreciate Russia going, hey, look, we don't want NATO on our border, just like we don't want Russia in Cuba. We had a big blow up about that many, many years ago. And so on one side, you can kind of understand what would have instigated the conflict. But on the other side, you got Ukrainians in a first world country now, right? They're experiencing democracy and freedom, and you can see them growing and really appreciating. A couple of years ago, I actually had the opportunity when we were working on our new bottling line, going to Lithuania to actually pick up our pasteurizer, and huge piece of equipment. And you see the new Lithuania. I mean, they're also an Eastern Bloc country, right? Getting out of the sphere of influence of Russia. Basically adopting the euro several years ago, and the young people now speak English, whereas the old people speak Russian in Lithuanian, right? New people speak English in Lithuania. So I mean, there's this tidal change that's occurring over there, and this is the last ditch effort of really what's a dictator trying to establish dominance. And here's the reality: him destroying Ukraine and simply leveling it off at the ground serves the same purpose as if they had capitulated to him. Right? The idea is to bring everybody else in line, and if everybody else looks at it and says, hey, look, they're just going to bulldoze us or we can capitulate, then he's achieved his end regardless. And I don't see a real clean path for us.
Yeah, I saw a Jake Tapper segment. I actually posted it on my Facebook. I'm not necessarily a big fan of his or CNN's these days, although I used to think CNN was pretty darn good. They do cover big events like this, but because they're so far over the rails on other issues politically, it's hard to listen to them with a credible mind. But Jake did a really good historical perspective on various presidents viewed toward Russia over time. And, listen, starting with Bill Clinton and talking in great detail about Barack Obama and all the way through Trump, about these varying points of view, but the way they continue to excuse him for his various actions. And I don't think that ever is going to happen again. I don't think that Putin will ever find his way back into the good graces of the international community. And, the role that China plays in all this is all so darn complicated. And, I got a note from a friend of mine who's literally right now, as we speak, in Saudi Arabia at an arms conference. And he said this: Russia has lost 3 generals. They've lost secure communications. They now have 9 different types of shoulder fired weapons, and they're pouring in to there. You know that, and the number of airplanes that they've been able to shoot down, and certainly the number of tanks that they've been able to penetrate. These guys, listen, we're at the beginning of this, and look, and they can try to bomb them into submission, but you're talking about a country the size of Texas, dude.
Sure.
It's a big country, and you're a radar guy, you're a logistics guy. You know the way technology is changing the game for this war versus some wars that maybe some approaches that maybe Putin played in the past. This is a different ball game, and this is going to drag on for a very, very long time. Who blinks first? It's not going to be the Ukrainians. That's clear.
No, they've gone all in, and you can see that from in every which way. Zelensky is just doing, man, he is all in on it, and the Ukrainians are backing him up. And I don't think the Russians expected to have a fight. I thought they were going to be able to roll in and be welcomed. That's not the case. And I agree with you. This is going to be a long thing. I mean, and it's going to have an impact on us. Yeah. Right now, we're looking at $4 a gallon gas. Our logistics are, crazy right now. A friend of mine posted the other day, it's like $4 a gallon gas. That big old truck's not looking so attractive. And I was like, I bought an electric car about 4 years ago, and it cost me about a penny a mile to run, not 25 or 30 cents a mile.
Well, Dave Dennis and I from Davis on Specialty Contractors, he used to work with the Regional Federal Reserve. He stays very much in contact with what's happening. He's got a good view on sort of what the business situation is, aside from politics. He and I are going to talk more about this. But one of the things that is very clear is that when the Biden administration came in, they moved too fast to put their energy policy in place at a time when there was already so many challenges in the American economy. I mean, it's like, this, it's like you running your business and having a bunch of challenges. The last thing you want to do is change another policy that's going to give you more challenges.
That's right.
But because I guess the people who were in here are so politically motivated to move toward a clean environment, they were just pushing so hard to do the things that they did that really affected America's ability to be energy dependent. And I say it's the biggest political football there is in America or in the world today. But I don't say that politically. I just say just from a pure policy point of view, they made some big mistakes. And now Ukraine has put those mistakes on steroids. And they're going to have to change their policy, buddy. And here's the thing. Most Americans, whether you're Republican or Democrat, believe that we need to clean the environment up. They get it. They see what's happening with renewable energies and all that. That's a reality. You know that as good as anybody.
Yep.
But the fact is, the thing they don't understand is how will these policy changes, impact me personally? That's the incremental effect on my life. That's what most studies reveal. People don't understand what that is. Well, now they're getting an incremental understanding of what these policies are going to do to their everyday life vis-a-vis the price of gas. This is a big issue, and it's not going to go away anytime soon. And it's going to be interesting as keep the Biden administration, keeps, we're not going to do it. Okay, we'll do it. Then how much are they willing to change so that we can have a viable, non-political conversation about energy independence? This is hard to watch.
There's not much to do but laugh at that. Because you're absolutely right. You can't get in the way of today's success. And you got to make these changes incrementally. They absolutely overreached. The goal is absolutely appropriate, right? We all want clean rivers and clean lakes and a Gulf where we can all go fish and do those kinds of things. But you got to take time. And the other aspect of it is those rapid changes like that give places like China and Russia an opportunity to create havoc. That we're coming out of a pandemic. This is not a wasted opportunity, right? Russia and China are doing this at this moment in time for very, very specific reasons. And they're ganging up on the United States, and they know that they go, well, if we can hold back that energy component, if we can drive those prices up, the American public they'll back down as well. And energy independence, that's a huge, huge deal.
I think that's what they're hoping. I'd like to. I like to think any of this because I wish we weren't here, but I'm not sure that Putin calculated all this. A lot of these reactions are probably, maybe unintended consequences that he likes, as he sees sort of this debate that's happening in America. But man, think about it. We're having conversations with Venezuela and Iran, and Russia's an intermediary in that renegotiation, and then Saudi Arabia. I mean, think about it. Why in the world are we even having these conversations? And the problem is, since it is political, it's harder to back down. That's the problem with this. And most Americans, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, are going to see that and feel it every single day. And they're going to say, we got to fix this, man. I don't care if it's political. If there's a political solution to this, we're for it. And I don't, that's Democrats and Republicans are going to say that.
That's right.
And this is not a political show. I mean, it's just the reality of the situation that most of us face here in coastal Mississippi now. Hey, when we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with Mark Henderson. I want to know what the latest is in his brewery, what's the latest is in Log Linear Group, and has he had a chance to do any art? Because he's also an artist. We'll see you after this break. Welcome back to Coast Vue. We have my friend Mark Henderson. He owns with his wife Lazy Magnolia Brewing Company. He also owns a company called Log Linear Group, and they do very sophisticated acoustics and radar systems and all that. Hey, one other question about Ukraine, and it really is not specific to Ukraine, but obviously the question is centered around Ukraine just because of the moment. But to be someone who is a design engineer who deals with advanced radar systems and all of that, does it change the way you observe that war? I mean, how does tell me about that.
All right. So, what does the war of the future look like, right? And at some point, I mean, we're seeing it in real time right here. One, you've got, the communications infrastructure that exists today, whether it be Starlink and Elon Musk, shipping in Starlink satellites. You've got Twitter, right? I mean, the disinformation campaign that goes on in the background, and how you have now boots on the ground and people being able to tweet out and in real time what's really going on. You've got drones running around in the air that are doing, I mean, they're absolutely decimating, convoys with drones that cost anywhere from like $1,000 up to, $1 million each. But I mean, when $1 million drone can take out an entire tank convoy, man, I mean, you're watching war change and how it's really fought in real time right now. It's crazy.
It is incredible. I said on the communication side of this multiple times here on Coast Vue that the big underestimation for Putin is that in the old days tyrants could control, and he's certainly trying to control media, but with the internet and accessibility to information, people are being informed. And one of the sort of dissenting voices in Russia pointed out the other day, millions of people in Russia know what's happening in Ukraine. They know it because they're getting the proper information about that. That is the game changer in this particular situation, and it will be interesting to see how that plays out. Okay, we're going to shift gears for a second. How's business for you? How are you starting to settle back in after having to diversify and do all the crazy stuff you were doing during the pandemic? Is business improving for you?
Yeah, it is. So, I mean, we actually had record volumes in the month of January. Now, we are struggling still on dealing with inflation. So, I mean, everything that we use has gone up by 30% or more. Cardboard, I mean, the energy that goes into it. We spent more on plastic wrap, of all things, in the month of January than we spent in the preceding year on plastic wrap, just for wrapping pallets and doing things like that. But we are seeing things change, and we had a good first Friday here in March. So for people who don't know, you can always come out to the brewery the first Friday of every month, have a good time, try something new. We released, we got all kinds of stuff going on all the time, right? So brand new beers coming out and doing all those kinds of things. And people are starting to get back out. We're seeing people, really kind of relax into a post-COVID world. And, it's good to see. It's good to see people react that way.
So what's going on in Log Linear Group these days?
So, I mean, again, I mean, you're seeing all kinds of insane things going on there. We've got some new companies that have come to the coast. I don't know if you've heard of Ocean Arrow.
Right. And you worked with them when they were in San Diego.
I did, and I'm doing some work for them now as well. For those who don't know, you can look up Ocean Arrow. They got a website that kind of walks through it. But, we talked about drones showing up in the current conflict. Ocean Arrow builds autonomous boats. autonomous sailboats that can go out into the real world and collect real data and report that back. And, there's some really, really good technology going on there. And I'm glad that I can help and be part of what's going on there as well.
I mentioned, one of the, again, going back to our first conversation in the early days of Coast Vue, you were really kind of a mathematics science guy, but you're also an artist, and because of the influence your mother had on you. So you're a right brain, left brain kind of guy. Do you get a chance to? Have you been doing any art lately? What's that look like in your life?
So no, I've got kids, and everybody that's out there in your audience that has kids will appreciate this. I've got 10 and a 7-year-old, and they're really consuming as much of my time as they possibly can. It's kind of interesting is that Leslie and I are both scientists. We're deeply engaged into the scientific component. She's a chemical engineer. I'm an electrical engineer, and we spend more time actually working with our children with art than we do anything else.
Isn't that cool though?
It is, and it's so critical. And I'm glad you brought up my mother. She actually passed away almost exactly a year ago. We just passed the anniversary on Saturday. And she was this kind of Renaissance woman. She was always doing something new and interesting, learning new things. And to her, arts was a critical component. And we actually did a huge donation to the Hancock Arts Foundation here in Hancock County. And they've taken a lot of her old, just things that she had collected, on the art world, and have given them a new home, and hopefully can incorporate them into ways to teach people and keep some of these old artisan techniques alive.
Well, my wife Ann, who and I had the real pleasure of keeping our grandkids most days, not every day, but most days, at least 3 days a week, and it's such a wonderful journey in our lives to have that opportunity to be able to spend time with them. So when I leave from this show, I'll leave the studio and I'll go out and kiss my grandchild, and she's going to pick up the other one now from school. So it's part of living, the opportunity to influence our kids and our kids' kids. Hey, listen, we got less than a half a minute left. I just want to say thank you for joining us. We got to get together more often, because when you and I chat, we never know where the conversation is going to go, and we should get together more often.
Absolutely. I always enjoy your conversation and love your audience.
This has been a special visit with Mark Henderson, and have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.